Hey, folks, I appreciate everybody being here this evening. Gonna open us up with a word of prayer and turn it over to our Vice Chairman to lead us in a prayer.
Dear Lord, thank you so very much for all that you've done for this city. Thank you for what you've done for this country, and thank you for a wonderful 4th of July. Bless this commission tonight, and let us make good decisions. Let us think our way through these points that are before us, and let us do things that are in the best interest of our city and our constituents and our community. Lord, thank you for all that you've blessed us with and continue to do so. And this we ask and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Before we do the roll call, just want to mention, I did not have the pleasure of serving this individual, but one of our former commissioners passed away within the last month. Commissioner Bryant Millsap served the city and served the state for a long time, and just want to remember his family and their loss, and that, and just thank him for his service, what he did here on this. I know several members here did serve with him, had the pleasure of doing that.
Can we say a special prayer for him?
Absolutely.
Dear Lord, again, I bring all of us in front of you again to say a special prayer for Bryant Millsaps. He served the city, he served it well, and he did it in great humor, and he did it in camaraderie, and he always did it for the citizens. And Lord, bless him, watch over him, and take him on a straight path to be by your side. All this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Lauren, will you call the roll, please?
Altizer,
Here.
Coker,
Here.
Evans, Hardwick,
Here.
Hasty,
Here.
Longmire, Peterson, Silkwood, and Slattery. Or I believe Slattery is the only absent.
Thank you. We have a quorum, and so next item on our agenda, we have listed in public hearings. We didn't have any scheduled for this evening, so we'll skip that, go to approval of the minutes from June 7th meeting. Does anybody have any questions, comments, additions, subtractions from those minutes after having had the opportunity to review? Seeing none and hearing none, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our June 7th meeting.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right. Did you catch who made the motion? We got the second. We had a little competition going on.
The motion was Vanessa.
Okay. I appreciate that enthusiasm. Let's keep it up tonight. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 5 on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have one item on here. I'll let Timothy just kind of quickly just say what it is. I mean, we don't need to, unless somebody wants to open it up for discussion or anything like that. I just want Timothy to quickly just.
Sure. Yeah, this is the site plan for Costco. Y'all approved the final development plan for Glenbrook South a few months ago. This is the follow-up to that. The site plan's in substantial compliance with the final development plan. They really haven't made any substantive changes from what y'all previously approved, and they have agreed to all staff comments.
Thank you, Timothy. With that, as that's the only item on the consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Move to approve the consent as presented.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Berry, will you call the roll, please?
Altizer,
Yes.
Evans, Hardwick,
Yes.
Hasty,
Yes.
Longmire,
Yes.
Peterson, Silkwood, and Coker.
Yes.
That's all 8.
Thank you. Item 6 on the agenda, we have, yeah, okay, well, I'm reading through it. Yep, the only item we had on the agenda has been applicant request for deferral, so that'll be simple enough. Then we'll go on to item 7, staff level projects that have been approved. I'll let Director Free address these.
Yeah, I'll just go through these fairly quickly. Ones of some significance, Cajun Steamer, exterior renovations. This is a new restaurant that's going to be located right over here off of Indian Lake Boulevard. Another thing of significance is playground and fence and retaining wall for United Methodist Church. So that's actually a pretty nice little project. And then also the first of probably several Tesla EV charging stations. So the site plan was approved for that. I think, is this one the Walmart one? Or is this the bank?
Tesla is kind of by in the parking lot where Aldi's is.
Yeah, we're Aldi's, right. So we'll probably have more of these charging stations throughout the community from Tesla that are starting to pop up. And those are all the ones of any significance, just to mention.
Item 8. Since we've got a little extra time, I just want to ask a question that's kind of directly related to this, but there's an item on here that made me think with this. It's not on the agenda, but I just want to kind of ask this and get some feedback from staff here on this. We had an issue last month with one of the items on there, just question about when the conflict of interest needs to be declared and stuff like that.
Yes.
I see a client of mine on the, I know it's a staff level, and so it just made me think on this.
Right.
Can you specify when exactly we need to declare a conflict of interest and when we do not?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I sure can do that. Certainly, we're not a large community, so a lot of us know, a lot of the commissioners, and a lot of us, even staff, know a lot of the folks that are here locally that might be coming before the Planning Commission. I think the important thing would be if you have any specific business interest with a particular project. It could be if you have any business or financial related interest, that would be appropriate time to disclose that, and then remove yourself from the discussion and the vote. And that could be just making a note of that, and then we wouldn't count you in the vote, and you could stay in your seat. Or you could choose, and what happens sometimes is you could just remove yourself and actually sit out in the audience until that particular item was discussed. Personally, I think that's what, if I had any specific financial interest where there was something for me to gain or lose, then probably I would just disclose that, not me, but I would disclose it as a planning commissioner, and then probably just step out into the audience until that item was over, just so there was no question about that. With other things, I think what we discussed last time with Grace Place is several folks give to that. Some give occasionally, some give more regularly. That's okay, and I don't think that's necessarily, you can disclose that, but that's probably not anything you necessarily would have to disclose. I think if you had somebody that was an indirect relative, you might want to disclose that. But what you do is you disclose something, if something you feel like is not going to cloud your decision on something, you would just acknowledge that and share it, and then also share, but I will be participating in the discussion and the vote because, I see in no way would my relationship with this person or anything have any direct impact that would be improper. And so I think that's kind of the best way to do it. But I can answer any specific scenarios or questions, that someone may have. And I think previously when we had maybe attorneys that were on the planning commission, sometimes they would recuse themselves because somebody was associated with their law firm and they had their law firm, they weren't the lawyer for that particular company, but somebody in their law firm was. So, that's just an example. I don't think we have any lawyers right now, but that's happened in the past.
Thank you, Director. I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah.
That was kind of a point of personal privilege there on that. But I know that there's been some discussion to the point that you made that we're a small community. We've all kind of got some ties everywhere. So just wanted kind of a little bit of clarity on that, and just seeing that on the agenda made me think of that.
And the expectation, and that, I focus there on the planning commission, but it's also from an ethical standpoint, the planning staff as well. If the planning staff had any of those particular things, typically we haven't really run into that, but if we ever do run into that, then it would be something that we certainly, if it was something I was associated with, or say Timothy, then that wouldn't be something he would review and be involved in, and we'd make sure that was the case. But so those same ethics and that same stuff about conflict of interest, as a staff, we practice that as well.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 8, then we have staff level projects that are pending.
Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Peterson.
I had a question on that list as well, if I may. I wanted to ask about the Tesla charging stations. How many spots are they going to be occupying at Aldi's?
Thank you. I believe they have a parking bay of, I believe it's 7 or 8 spaces.
And is the development developing these, or how do they take up 8 parking spaces? Is there a demand for charging stations?
I can't speak to the demand, but I know they have an arrangement with the shopping center owner to do the parking spaces, and they've got sufficient excess capacity so that taking up these parking spaces does not negatively impact their required parking.
Oh, okay, that was my question. And Director Free, you said there's more planned for the city? How many more are planned?
Is it Walmart?
ahead.
We've had discussions with, I think it was a Tesla at Walmart as well. I think that was a while back. This one may have moved from Walmart, but we have had some interest recently.
And are these only for Teslas, or can anybody with an electric car use these?
My understanding is that this is for Tesla.
Okay. That's interesting. Thank you. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Any other questions or comments about agenda item 7? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 8, staff level projects that are pending. And Director, would you like to give us a rundown on them?
Nothing of any significance. One I might mention is the Mr. Car Wash improvements. That is the car wash that's in front of Kroger on Main Street. And actually, they're making some improvements that will improve that situation substantially with their another exit over there. So, it kind of backs up and everything. They're doing some things with their lanes and their stacking, and then also having another alternate exit that doesn't just come right out there where everybody is coming into. So I think that's gonna make a nice difference there. All the other things are nothing of any super significance, any of those other items.
Thank you, Director. Any questions or comments on agenda item 8 from commissioners? Seeing none, move on to agenda item 9. This is kind of unique here for us, but Director Free had kind of reached out to me ahead of time to see about inclusion of this on the agenda. And this is just, I think we've got the developers here correct on this, that they wanted to just kind of give a little sense of where we were. We're not going to vote on anything. They don't have an item of business in front of us. They just want to talk about what they have in mind and just get where we are as a body on this. And so, especially since we had a light agenda tonight, thought this would be an appropriate time to do something like that. Let them just get a little feedback ahead of time. So if y'all would like to come up, introduce yourselves.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bill Oldacre with Oldacre McDonald, based in Nashville, real estate developers. This is Jeff Cundiff with Barge Design Solutions, and we have got 18 acres, approximately 18 acres under contract just south of here, the Bradford Berry House property. And so we have been in the planning stages of that property for the last 6 months at least, and have had a lot of interest in it, and we've had, it's a very deep property, so we're concentrating on the frontage first, obviously, and then we're going to then we're also working with some people to look at the back. But as we have been planning the property, we've run into a little bit of a snag with our Valvoline use, and so that's why we wanted to come and talk to you. So to give you kind of a breakdown, so this property is 18.4 acres, the total, and we have already in the past, we have agreed to give the city 1.34 acres and for the house, the Bradford Berry property, and also .18 acres for the cemetery where the Bradford family is buried, for a total of a little over an acre and a half and a little over 8% of our development. Then we also have agreed in our planning to donate 2.62 acres as a right-of-way for public roads that will go and be behind our frontage parcels, as you can see on the plan there, and in the front of the Bradford Berry House. So that constitutes about 14% of our property, leaving us a little over 77% of our property net to develop. So we're trying to kind of be efficient in how we do this, and we're already down 20-something%. So we have on the corner, you'll see on the north corner, we've got the cemetery is behind our frontage, and so the cemetery creates a very small frontage lot. So we have Valvoline has been very interested in that lot, and we've been having conversations with them, but the problem is, and which we're fine with, is that you don't want bays facing the main street. So we're good with that. We agree with that. So we propose to turn the building and face the bays to the side. Well, while that's not the primary street and it's not a very heavily traveled street, it is technically another public road. And so here we are. We've got a very high quality oil change place that's interested in going here, but we would need a variance to turn the bay sideways. And so when we were driving up here tonight, we drove all the way from the south end of town all the way up here just to kind of remember what everything looks like. And I can see from driving up here, I can see maybe the cause for concern, because years ago when people were first developing, there weren't as many restrictions as there are now on landscaping, on screening, on architectural controls, signage controls. And so, but as you continue north, you can see a gradual improvement in the way properties look, because planning commissions like you guys, in this case you guys, and your predecessors have made sure that even though the use isn't, a sit-down restaurant or something else that maybe you would prefer to have, it is a use that looks good because it's screened and it's got high architectural standards. The three that I saw that are most closely located to this property are the Express Oil, which looks fabulous, I think. It's brand new. The NTB, which we developed, I will say, back in 2008, and also the Tire Discounters, which is a pretty new property that also has got bays that are facing the right side, excuse me. So what we want to do is in our conversations, we have been encouraged to move that use to the middle. But when you move that use to the middle, you end up having a small land user on a real big lot. So it doesn't make much sense unless you reconfigure the lot to kind of chop it to make it smaller. Well, when you do that, you end up with an S-shaped parcel on the end of the property that kind of starts at the road and swings around the cemetery to the back road. So we've got a kind of an atypical lot, and we've got a middle lot that is way too big for our user. So what we wanted to do is try to get some clarity and talk to you guys tonight on a discussion basis only to say, before we spend a whole lot more money on plans for submittal for you guys, to say we would like to heavily screen Valvoline sent us this. This is not something we did, but this just shows you kind of the high level of screening. But because Valvoline's obviously interested in doing it because they're the ones that are sending us this information. But we would like to get your feedback on putting the store on the corner and facing the side road with a lot of screening. Like this. And I know that Valvoline also sent us another package, and Oliver, I don't know if you've got that has got shows where they would propose their screening. But it would be between the road, obviously between the road and their parking lot along the right-hand side of their lot here, which would be the northern side, and also in the front and on the left side, and on both property lines, right and left, and in the front. So, anybody got any feedback for me on that?
Yeah, we'll just kind of do this from chair position. We'll just kind of do this informally since there's not an item of business in front of us. Just if somebody has a question, just kind of let conversation flow back and forth.
I would just mention one thing.
Director?
Yeah, I would just mention one thing as you're looking at this elevation. This is just a conceptual elevation that they had submitted. It doesn't look like the other one that's the color rendering. And so that other elevation, the one that's a little plainer, that really wouldn't represent what we would approve. I just wanted to kind of,
You're saying this wouldn't or the other one?
the other one,
Okay.
this one, we'd need to see more detail, but.
Yeah.
But the other one is, there's too much ephes, it doesn't have enough detail, like some of the ones that you mentioned.
Right.
You know, we've required, heavy exterior requirements on it, and this would be the same. So I just wanted to let the commission know that elevation wouldn't be what we would, from the staff standpoint,
Right.
wouldn't be what we would hope would come to you all. But just, I guess for just concept is what it's up there now.
Well, and I will say this, that we have been developing a long time Mark McDonald and I have been partners since 1991, and have developed a lot of properties. And we are at least as hard as on the development properties that are submitted to us as the cities are, we think. So we always have in our leases or our contracts that we have control, we have architectural control, we have landscaping control, we have signage control. And we have, everything must be utilities underground, things like that. So we have no problem with that. And quite frankly, I think these retailers, when they're in a city like Hendersonville, they kind of expect it. And I'm sure they probably have that in mind.
Just to kind of help kick stuff off here, you've given us a lot of good background and appreciate it and kind of set things up. If this were presented to us this evening as something we're voting on, what specifically would you be asking for in terms of variance then?
Jeff, you may be able to speak to that.
Yeah, Timothy or Keith, feel free to jump in here, but I mean, basically, so this is a unique property. It's got a weird shape. It's bound on three sides by a public road that the development is creating. So, the intent of the standard is to not have doors facing Gallatin Road. And so, so orienting the building that way so there's no doors facing Gallatin Road, then you end up having them on both sides. But because we're bound on three sides by streets, inevitably we don't meet the letter of the law for that ordinance. So it would be basically to allow doors on that side drive, which is the drive that leads back to Aladdin right now, and then just heavily screen it to try to mitigate, anything.
And I know it's conceptual at this point. We're talking hypothetically here at this point. Would there be other variances that you'd be asking for that you would anticipate asking for?
Not related to this project. I
Okay.
can't speak for any other future ones, but
Okay.
not related to the Valvoline, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Commissioner Longmire.
I'd like to ask a little bit, you mentioned the cemeteries.
Yes,
Of
ma'am.
course, it's a historical home, and
Correct.
many of us in Hendersonville are trying to keep our past with us.
Right.
So
all for that.
What is the plan for the cemeteries? Are you going to turn that over to the city,
Correct.
both of them?
Correct.
Okay,
The house property and the cemetery.
okay.
Commissioner Peterson?
Thank you, Chairman. And we appreciate that donation. And you left out that you are donating a $100,000 monetary gift as well.
Correct.
For the restoration of the house, and we appreciate that. I do have one question. Jason, can you put up the big map, please? Or Lauren, whoever's controlling that? The other one. Yeah, that's it. Now, what parcel are you looking at for Valvoline?
The one on the very top.
Parcel C, okay.
And that lot is slightly different than the shape of the Valvoline lot. That shows 3 different parcels and a larger parcel on the north, but that is where the Valvoline would go. So it's slightly different looking than that.
Oh, okay, I see. That's sideways from what I was trying to think of. So it will be facing Main Street?
The building will be facing Main Street, but the bays will be facing the sides.
Okay, Mayfield, or was it
Correct.
Mayfair Boulevard?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Evans?
Just for discussion purposes, we approved some overhead doors the other day for the Chrysler Jeep dealer because they were more showroom areas than they were workshop areas. And what I know about oil change facilities, whether you get the Castrol or you get the Pennzoil or you get the Valvoline, whoever the one is, when you look in those doors, you see a very professional operation. Most of the dirty stuff happens down in the hole, and from my perspective, I really don't see a problem with it. Every time you got a corner lot, you got a problem. A fence or something that can't be hidden behind the building.
Right.
So in that situation, I don't see a problem with it because it's clean. If it was a transmission shop or somebody with lifts and torches and all the other stuff that goes along with it, then I can see how we want to kind of hide that. But the screening that you're showing on the Valvoline proposal, it looks like that. I mean, that's a great looking plan if they stick with that on the site plan. So from my perspective, I don't see as big a problem as I would have personally if we were looking at a mechanic shop.
We met with Valvoline when we were in Las Vegas for the shopping center convention, which was in May. And they specifically had us come into their booth. All those retailers have booths, developers have booths, and we were summoned over there with their real estate people to try to figure this out. They really would love to do it. And so I think, they are going to be receptive to reasonable requests to make improvements. And I don't have any doubt about that.
Commissioner Silkwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a bit on the fence with this. In a way, I agree with Commissioner Evans. The screening seems adequate and whatnot. However, I disagree a little bit in that some of these oil change places you drive by and they're not so clean on the inside, and the doors are constantly open and you can see right in there. And this, as far as I can tell, if I'm understanding this correctly, the bays would face Pinnacle Bank, correct? I'm kind of having a hard time mentally getting across that bridge to have a oil change place. Their bay is constantly open, oil change is going on, and the bank is pretty much right there next door. So I'm not saying I would be a no vote. I'm not saying I would be yes, just not 100% behind even with the screening.
Well, I will say that the Pinnacle Bank that is our bank. That is our main bank. We've talked to them about it. And one of the possibilities, and they have not given us a firm answer on this, but we have the ability to potentially give them access to this road so we can go get into the bank from the new public road, which is a benefit for them. And also the screening along that north side would be most effective for them, because that's what they wouldn't be able to see into those bays. They would just see magnolia trees. And so we do a lot of stuff with Pinnacle Bank, and we've talked to them about it, and they're, supportive of our development. I'll say that. And I will also say that it's a pretty good distance. I know what you're saying. They're the next door neighbor, but there is a buffer with that road between them. It's not right next door, not too close, but I understand your point.
I wanted to give Commissioner Longmire the opportunity to do this first because she loves doing this, but I'm not a big fan of variances. So, not to steal her line on that. But when those come to us on this, since this is, we're just in discussion phase on this right here. One thing to consider is what would long-term use be, that sort of thing. So I'm going to ask maybe a couple questions that we wouldn't normally ask in this, but just kind of help on this. And I think it's timely that we mentioned something, I don't know if y'all were in the room at the time, but an earlier agenda item was Tesla charging stations we dealt with tonight. I'm not a mechanic, but I'm pretty sure that EVs don't use oil in that. So what is the intended lifespan of this? As obviously that's something that's kind of growing of importance. Our state's invested $1 billion in bringing Ford battery plant and electric vehicles to West Tennessee. That's obviously where the future is going on this. So would Valvoline be in this building 15 years from now? And if not, what would be an adaptable use for this building then? I mean, could another mechanic step into that? I mean, what would be some uses on that? So
Well,
anything to speak to on that?
That's a good question. And I tell you, it is kind of crazy. You see today in Nashville, 7-Eleven is expanding like crazy. Thornton's is expanding like crazy. MAPCO, I mean, all of the gas guys are building these big mega stations with 25 pumps. And then you go see Buc-ee's, and we're working on a Buc-ee's in Georgia, and it's got 100 pumps. And I'm going, what is going on? And there's one just opened in Crossville, one's getting ready to open in Athens, Alabama. So I don't know what these people know, because I also hear that by 2030, half the cars that are going to be sold are electric. So, but now this takes me back to 1995, 96. We were in Las Vegas. We were in Las Vegas at the shopping center conference, and that's the first time we ever met Hollywood Video. And we had no idea who Hollywood Video was. We never heard of them before. And we'd heard of Blockbuster, but not Hollywood. So we went by the Hollywood booth, and they're from Oregon and all that. And we said, hey, wow, this is great looking building and stuff, kind of cool looking. Said, we want to develop for you guys. Let's do it. And so we did a lot of Hollywood Videos, and people kept saying the same thing. What are you going to do? Because this technology is not forever. But as it turns out, the real estate was so good that it has a life. It has life after death. In the case of Hollywood Video, the Hollywood Video we did in Hendersonville is now Dollar Tree, but there are more Verizons and people like that in those buildings. Now, I don't know. I can't recall right now if this is a 15 or a 20-year lease, but it's one of those two. Can you remember, Oliver? 15-year lease. So it's a 15-year lease. So they're there for 15 years. And, I'm confident that we'll have change oil for the next 15 years. Now, at the end of that 15-year term, somebody may come in and tear the building down and start over or reuse the existing building. But I'll say this, a lot of the development we do these days is buildings that we buy and tear down. We bought the O'Charlie's on Indian Lake and developed Chipotle, and we're just developing Aspen Dental on the other half of it. So it doesn't matter, it's oil, gas stations and oil is crazy, but a lot of buildings don't make it past 15 or 20 years in good locations. And this location, I've got to figure, is only going to be better in 15 years than it is now.
And I appreciate that. And I guess you kind of touched on a little bit. What would, if this 15 years from now, this is obsolete, and we're talking hypothetically, of course, on this, what is the cleanup like for something like that? I know when a service station closes down, there's a lot of environmental concerns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that the same sort of thing on an oil change facility?
No,
Okay.
and Jeff will know more than me if we need to get into it, but this is contained. it is monitored, it's looked at closely, it's policed, a better word, I don't know, but this is not just helter-skelter, letting oil drain into the ground.
Okay.
So it is highly controlled.
Okay, so it wouldn't, you're not looking at any potential issues then
No.
if you did want to repurpose that property? Okay.
No.
Okay. Just, again, I'm kind of asking some questions there, maybe I wouldn't normally ask if this
Yeah.
was a business item. From the sound of this, sounds like this is going to be a company-owned store as opposed to something franchised, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And from the sound of it, y'all are they doing is it a ground lease with y'all, or are you building the building and they're leasing the building from you as well?
What is this? Ground lease.
Okay, okay. Thank
You bet.
you. Commissioner Longmire?
Just one more time. I want to ask you a little bit about the Bradford Berry house itself. And of course, $100,000 sounds generous. I happen to know it is not. I've renovated a lot of houses that aren't anywhere like as old as Bradford Berry, and
Right.
it's nice to have it money, but it's not going to get it done, in my
Right.
opinion.
Right.
Is there going to be any, when you give this to the city, is it just going to be as is, where is, here it is, here's the lot? And
Right.
everything else goes to the city?
Right.
So there's no ingress or egress for the,
No. We're building a public road in front of the house.
it's going back into the property or going across the property?
It'll have frontage on the public street, the house will. The 1.34 acres, where the house is, it's also, it's on the top of the picture behind the back driveway, right there. So that's the property. It's side, it's the north corner. And so all of that land that'll be on, fronting a public street. So people will be able to get into it very easily. And then the cemetery is across the street in front of the house. Very visible.
Okay, I'm sure when you come back, there'll be more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Hasty?
You got a proposed side easement down at the corner there. Is that just for Valvoline, or is that easement and signage going to be for the whole development?
Well, some of it will be for the property in the back. I'm assuming, is that right, Jeff? Yeah, because we're intending, if you could show that slide that shows it all the way back, more property in the back for future development. And so some of that easement would be for that. Well, we'll have, the frontage lots will have their own signage. And then, but the guy in the back, we're trying to create an easement so that he would have some frontage on Gallatin Road for his signage.
I'll just kind of ask here on this. I know obviously you're talking to us in this extent for Valvoline on this. If this was presented as a business item and we were not to approve, what, if y'all got folks that you're talking to that are also interested in this property, what other uses are kind of would this particular parcel be used for potentially? And I know what our zoning is on it. I'm just kind of wondering where economics have kind of taken things right now.
Oliver, what's the size of this lot? What is the size of how many? 8/10 of an acre. So, we would have to, it's a good question because there are not a lot of tenants that are that small.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not sure who it would be.
Okay. Commissioner Hardwick?
So who have you lined up for the other two spaces?
We've got some national retail / restaurants that are looking at it that would shoot us if we told who they were in this forum. But people that I know, I'm confident, 100% confident you would like, the other ones would have it would not be controversial. I'll say that.
Any other questions, comments from commissioners, any from developers, any comments that you'd want to add on this, or anything that we haven't? I know the point of this tonight is to kind of get a little sense of where we might be mentally and some of the
That's
issues
right.
on this. Is there any other questions you have for us, or any other feedback that you have for
Jeff,
us?
you have any?
No.
We're good.
Okay. No. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Just want to thank you all too. This is the first time, at least I've been on this commission, that we've done this way. I appreciate this opportunity to kind of have feedback and just talk things out before this. I mean, it may be months before y'all are back here. I
Yeah.
don't know what the timeline is on this, but it's certainly helpful for us, and we appreciate y'all's willingness to do
Same
this.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, we really have, and don't do this very much. I mean, have just a discussion, public discussion, but it is very valuable.
Yeah.
And at first, when I heard about it, I thought, does this make sense? But then I thought about it for a little bit, and it did.
Yeah.
And then Jeff reminded me that it did, so then I knew it did. So thank y'all.
Well, thank y'all. Yeah. Item 10 on our agenda is any planning director comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just had a couple things that I'll share. The planning staff has been dealing with over the last couple of months, actually, surprisingly, a lot of COVID-related issues. So, but we've maintained our staffing levels and our ability to work remote and all of that. So we really haven't missed a beat with that. I may just mention what the previous developer said about tear downs. Actually, we're in a cycle right now where we've got all kinds of people looking at that. So definitely over the next 4 to 6 months, you will probably see some things get purchased and torn down and something replacing it. So we're at that point, and it happens in a lot of times in communities where, you know, somebody be like, well, that was a perfectly good building and that was a perfectly good business that was there, but we're at that stage in our city development where actually the cost of the land far exceeds the cost of any particular building. And so I think you'll see some of that. And then, you know, we were talking earlier here about the oil changing facility and what the future use would be. That's why it's very important, just like with this particular use, if it moves forward, that we get that design of that building down to where it is a super attractive building, so that we're not just designing a building for oil change facility. We're designing a classic building that could easily, without spending $200,000 or $300,000 on the exterior, a dentist office could go in, a coffee shop could go in, a restaurant, any number of things, you know, could utilize that building in the future without actually having to tear the building down. And that adds value to our community over a period of time, you know, having buildings. And a lot of our buildings in the last 10 years have that quality where anything could go in there. Also, one thing I just might mention, and me and the staff have talked about this in the last couple of weeks, is, you know, the building design and what the exterior looks like. A good-looking building that's well thought out and is architecturally classical in design and very attractive. That building would look good if it was vacant or if it had any number of uses in it. But a building that is mediocre in design and uninspired, it could be full and look tired. But if you get it vacant at any point in the future, it significantly can start devaluing the properties around it. So the significance of the exterior design and us holding to that is very important. And we can continue to do that and do it in a reasonable nature and still keep that bar very, very high. I just might mention, everybody I think is aware of the litigation issues, but I might just mention this is not, This is not something that is just here in Hendersonville. There is an uptick in zoning-related litigation that's occurring all throughout Middle Tennessee. Right now, we're seeing it at least every 2 weeks. We're seeing something in the paper. So we just need to make sure as we move forward as a community that, we guard ourselves as much as we can against potential litigation. So that seems to be something that's fairly new that Middle Tennessee is starting to experience. And I think it relates to the growth pressures and the value of property, where you're just talking, if a developer can't get what they feel like they should reasonably get, then the costs that are lost are significant enough that kind of trigger the potential for litigation. So that's kind of what's going on. It's not just here; it's just throughout Middle Tennessee. Also, our Westlake plan, redevelopment plan, and future land use plan for West Main Street and all of Old Town. That's still moving forward. We're hopeful in the next couple of weeks to get the final draft on that and get that out to you. We're going to be looking at our timeline. My goal would be to hopefully get this approved by December of this year at the latest, if that's possible. And if that's going to be the case, there will be, but we'll let you know well in advance, sometime in mid-August or mid-November, we will have a public hearing and a public input session with the Planning Commission and the public. And we'll invite BOMA to that as well, where we can get everybody commenting on the plan and get our consultants to present the plan. Also, BOMA did at their last meeting, they approved all the zoning ordinance changes. They made some additional minor changes at the BOMA level, but all of that has been completed and done. And the next thing that we're starting to work on are changes to our subdivision regulations, which we're hopeful before the end of the year, we have a work session and we start that process. And now when we do the subdivision regulations, that only is approved by the Planning Commission. It doesn't move forward to BOMA. So we've got a majority of that done, but we've got some final things to finish up on that. And that's everything that I had to share, and I can answer any questions anybody might have, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Peters?
Thank you. Director Freed, the BOMA passed the new zoning ordinances unanimously.
Yes, sir.
And we appreciate the hard work that you and the planning department put in all those ordinances. I know there was a lot of work, and we really appreciate all the time and effort y'all put in that. And it was clear to BOMA that it was important for the city moving forward, so it did pass unanimously, and we want to thank you for all your work on that.
Okay. Thank you,
Thanks.
Alderman. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Evans?
Just a comment, and Director Free, I really appreciate your comments about buildings will be torn down because the land value is worth more than the buildings that are on them. And I've personally torn down 4 houses in Hendersonville and built new ones. And that's happening all over the Old Town area, as you guys know better than I do. I just go by and see, gosh, here this goes. But the land is valuable, and times they are a-changing. How often have we heard that? From the 60s, I remember that. But when the Old Town project was working strong, and when all of those new ideas were coming out, it was thought at the time that the only way to revitalize an old area like that was to make it attractive enough for people to make money from either high-density housing or some other sort of incentive to get that land redeveloped, that we thought at the time maybe 60 units per acre or whatever it was that was approved at the time. But we don't need to do that now. That's why things are changing back again, because the land is so valuable, because of primarily the business climate and the living environment in Tennessee and the influx that we're getting from everywhere. So bottom line is we should be taking advantage of that, which we are, to make our city a nicer place to be. And you're correct. You can make an oil change building look like a doctor's office. You can. But we had a guy in a town that I used to live in years ago. I was a city council member there, and we joked that A.D. Ray was the only person we'd ever known who could build an old building. And you certainly can. But you can also build with class. And you told me a while back, we need to be building quality with what we've got left. And I appreciate that, and I'm gonna help do that. Thank you.
Another little.
Director Free?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Commissioner. It is something where this Westlake plan that we're going to unveil to everybody here in the next couple of weeks, it was something where initially, when kind of had this vision of doing this a couple of years ago, was I thought we'll do the plan, and then the plan will spur this investment and this interest in investment, and it will bring a lot of things. Actually, we're not done with the plan yet. Now the plan, actually, all of that is already happening. And so now the timeliness of the plan is pretty good because we're going to use that plan as a tool to focus all of that interest and investment instead of just creating the atmosphere for it to occur, because it's already occurring. So it's very interesting. So thank you, John.
Any other questions, comments from commissioners? Seeing none, I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.